So after having completed the lesson on the law of diminishing marginal utility, we now proceed to understand the law of equi-marginal utility. Now, we understand that all consumers are faced with two problems. One is the unlimited wants, and the other is that of limited resources. And the consumer has to learn to make choices, because all these resources that are in unlimited form also have got alternative uses. Now, the question here is, how does a consumer decide how many units of each commodity will this consumer buy? That is the question this law of equi-marginal utility will apply. This law of equi-marginal utility is also called as Gossen's second law. This is derived from the first law of diminishing marginal utility. In that first law, what we had done was we only assumed that the consumer will consume a certain number of units of a commodity, and as he consumes more and more of that unit, then the marginal utility that he gets goes on diminishing. Now, can we use that law to decide how many units of a commodity will this consumer buy? So here Gossen says, when faced with limited budget, Gossen did not use money, he used time, and time is also a limited resources in our day-to-day life. It has got alternative uses and we have to make a choice. So a person maximizes his utility when he allocates his expenditure of time among various goods or various activities, so that he obtains the same amount of satisfaction from the last unit of each commodity that he has consumed. So he has got so many units to consume, so many heads of expenditure to consume. So what does this consumer have to do? The consumer will have to spend his money income in such a way that it gives the last marginal utility that he gets from consumption of commodity A is equal to the consumption marginal utility that he will get from the consumption of commodity B, to the marginal utility from commodity C, and so forth. And the utility from all these different heads of expenditure must be equal, or shall be the same for all pleasure. Now let us see how we have to proceed with this idea. Right? The principle of equi-marginal utility. Now here what we understand is, the consumer will spend his money income in such a way that the utility derived from the last unit of the money spent on each good is equal. Let's see further. We make certain assumptions. Now I have explained to you why we use assumptions, so let me go straight into the assumption. Here the consumer is expected to be a rational person. And for this study, the consumer spends his income on only two goods, X and Y. Again, a hypothetical example, but that is necessary for us to understand the law. And third one, we assume here the marginal utility of money remains constant. What does that mean? It means that when the stock of money increases, the utility normally should come down, but we are here assuming that the marginal utility of money remains constant. And then we also assume that the consumer can substitute commodity A for B when he wants to do it, because he can compare the utilities that he gets from commodity A to the marginal utility that he gets from commodity B. And the consumer is guided by two intrinsic factors. One is the price of the commodity that he purchases, and the marginal utility of that commodity. So we have three things here: the two commodities X and Y, the price of the commodity, and the marginal utility of the two commodities. How do we explain this law? We say that a consumer will compare the price of that commodity he consumes with the marginal utility that he gets of that commodity. So it will be marginal utility of commodity X, because we took X and Y. X divided by the price of X must be equal to the marginal utility of Y divided by the price of Y, and finally the utilities, when you compare it, that utility must be equal to the utility of money itself. So the utility from commodity X and the price of X, compare it, the utility of commodity Y with compare it with its price. Finally, the utilities that you get should be equal to the marginal utility of money itself, in such a way that MUX by PX must be equal to MUY by PY, and finally it should be equal to MUM. Now what does it mean? MUM is the marginal utility of money. So how many ever units of commodities we consume, we will compare it with the price of that commodity. We take a decision of how many units to buy. At the end of it, what we get, we should feel that we have got the best utility of the money we spend. We should not waste money and feel that it did not give us the required satisfaction. A very simple numerical example you can have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 commodities we have taken, and we have written the marginal utility of commodity X, which is 24, 22, 20, 18 and 16. This is something now you know, because we've already done that in the last lesson. But the new thing that we are going to do is a third column where we are writing marginal utility of commodity X by the price of commodity X. Now we will assume that the price of commodity X is rupees 2. Just for easy calculation, we are taking a small number like that. So the price of commodity X is rupees 2, and we have a list of utility of that commodity. Now what are we doing? MUX by price of X. So what is that? 24 divided by 2, 22 divided by 2, 20 divided by 2, 18 divided by 2 and 16 divided by 2. So we have divided all the marginal utilities by the price of that commodity, and we got the third column. Now we have another commodity, marginal utility of commodity Y. To Y also we do the same thing. When he has the first unit of commodity Y, he gets 30 utils. Second one gives him 27, 21 and 18. Right, 18. Now, in this particular case, we shall take the price of commodity Y to be rupees 3. The commodity X was rupees 2, commodity Y is rupees 3. We do the same activity of dividing that and finding out MUX by PY. So we are going to do MUY by PY. So MUY by PY gives us 10, 9, 8, 7 and 6. Now, this table is complete. Do you think that the consumer is now looking at his table? Will he be in a position to decide how many units of commodity X and how many units of commodity Y the consumer will purchase by looking at the table? I hope you could figure out what is to be done. Yeah. Now the consumer will buy 5 units. Yes, 5 units of commodity X. Why would he buy 5 units of commodity X? He will buy 5 because MUX by PX is equal to 8. And what did we assume? We assumed that the marginal utility of money is also 8. So the marginal utility of commodity X by price of X is now equal to the marginal utility of money, which is at 8. Now let's take the next column for commodity Y, and there also you will find that the consumer purchases 3 units of the commodity. Why again 3? If you very easily you can see it in the table. At 3 units of purchasing of commodity Y, the MUY by PY is equal to 8. And that 8 is equal to the marginal utility of money. So 5 units of commodity X and 3 units of commodity Y with the utility equaling to 8 is a decision making for the consumer, and the consumer will decide to stop buying any more commodities after 5 units of X and after 3 units of commodity Y. Now that's very simple. You can see it in the diagram. On the vertical axis you have marginal utility, and on the horizontal axis you have the marginal utility of y and the marginal utility of x. So what are you seeing? The marginal utility of money is held constant. That is why the marginal utility money line is a horizontal straight line, and you have two sloping curves. One is for marginal utility of commodity Y, the first one, which shows the 3 units that you're going to buy, and the marginal utility of commodity Y, X is 5 units, so it is a little bigger than the first one, which indicates that we are having a larger number of commodity X. I'm sure that this was clear to you. Now the question is consumer, how much money will the consumer spend? And he is said to be in a state of equilibrium. In economics, when we use the word equilibrium, we again borrowed from physics, we mean it is a state of rest. Otherwise, what is this consumer going to do? We assume that the consumer will substitute one for the other. Till the time these utilities, all the 3 utilities were not equal, the consumer could have substituted one for the other. He could have substituted x for y or y for x, till such time it became equal to the utility for money. So here now we agreed to 5 units of it and 3 units of it. So 10 rupees he would spend on buying commodity X, and he would spend 9 rupees on buying commodity Y, and the consumer will be in a state of equilibrium, deciding no more allocation on reallocation to be done in such a way that he spends 19 rupees on both the commodities. Now this law is also bound to be criticized like all laws that we do. It is based on the measurability of utility in cardinal numbers. The question is, do we actually measure utility in such exact numbers? And does the marginal utility of money remain constant like what we said, or do consumers always act rationally? Are we not irrational sometimes when we go to a sale or an exhibition where we buy things without much of this mental calculation we are supposed to do? And consumers are not so calculative all the time, and the law assumes that commodities and their marginal utilities are independent. So we assume that in cardinal analysis that the utility that you derive from commodity X is not depend upon the utility that we derive from commodity Y, which is not true, because whatever we consume of this is also going to influence the consumption and utility of that commodity, the next commodity. But how do we apply this law for indivisible items like furniture or books or something else like that? The law is difficult to apply. So let's see whether you can understand its application in real life. Now I have taken Gossen's example of time here, and I'm asking you, how are you spending your time? So we all have 24 hours of time a day, and this 24 hours is spent on a variety of things that we do. And the question here is, are we allocating our time on various heads of expenditure reasonably well? Are we feeling satisfied with it, or do we feel there is a need for reallocation? If you find that your time, the way you have allocated your time is good, then you are in a position of equilibrium. Otherwise, you will feel the need for going on making adjustment to the allocation of time for others. So look into your own time management, look into how you have been spending your time, and you can find out better ways of utilizing your time. I hope the text on the slides have been useful even in the previous lessons for your notes purposes, and you can use it along with your textbook. So thank you. I'm sure that you have learned the law of diminishing equi-marginal utility well with the diagram and the table. And you will be able to share this with your friend and also subscribe to this channel. The next lesson that we are going to do is the law of demand. It's an interesting thing, and any student of economics must learn the law of demand well. Thank you and happy learning.